Oh boy. What do we have here? What do we have here? Is it the 2018 Triumph Street Triple 765 RS? That's correct, guys. And Dragon went to work, and for some strange reason, she's letting me take this little baby out tonight. So me and this girl here are gonna go out on a little date, and it's probably gonna involve me giving her a good little run around the city and hopefully some country roads too, guys. So this is Scooter here with PNW Sport Bike Life, and we are gonna take out the Street Triple RS. Feast your ears on this. Sound of that sweet, sweet triple. Oh man. This thing just sounds too sexy for its own good. Nice. You can see we got that Öhlins gas rear shock, which is just freaking insane. The ride quality on this bike is just ridiculous. It's definitely cut above my Suzuki, and we'll be probably making a lot of comparisons to the Suzuki because it's what I know right now. So things we did to the bike here, we put on the Yoshimura fender eliminator, which is an absolute must. Stock fenders are ugly. We all know that's one of the first things we all change out. Tires come stock on this bike, Diablo Super Corsa, which are a very track-oriented tire, and that's fine. We don't do a lot of riding in the rain, even though we are in the PNW. We put the Woodcraft swing arm spools so we can lift the bike up on a stand. They also protect the swing arm in the event of a crash. Very cool. We got the SW Motech frame sliders, which I think look pretty killer on this bike. This bike is very minimally fared, as you can see. That's about it right there. There's a little belly plastic, but that's about it. And you can see up front we have the actual Brembo monoblock, steel braided lines. Just looks killer. And these brakes are absolutely insane. They bite hard, which personally, that's how I like my front brakes to be. I like them to bite hard. Comes with these pretty cool bar end mirrors. Unfortunately, they vibrate after about 40 miles an hour, which kind of sucks. It's probably my one gripe. One of my only gripes about this bike. We got the MCS levers come on this thing. They're like infinitely adjustable, which is cool because my wife doesn't have very big hands because she's a lady. Front looks killer. Headlights are just badass. And you can see it's got actual ram air, which is really, really cool. Just sucks that air in. So this bike runs pretty cool too. Even when you're working it, it doesn't really get too hot, which is really, really cool. So I say we stop screwing around and go ride this frickin' thing. 76 my ass. It's more like 96 out. I'm sweating my balls off in this setup right now. All right, differences between this bike and the Suzuki. That one of the other things that I don't really like is the friction zone on this bike is like way out there. You really have to it's really at the very end of the clutch action, so I'm not always a big fan of that. I have to kind of reacclimate myself to this bike when I get back on it, because my Suzuki is the friction zone on its clutch is just, to me, is preferable. I just like it better. So you can see how smooth the bike runs at low speeds. Just impeccable fueling on this thing. It is just it just doesn't get any better as far as fueling goes, and throttle response is just, it's so smooth, man. I had to put a power commander on my Suzuki because the fuel mapping on it was so shitty from the factory. You're not going to see stuff like that happen on a Triumph. I mean, that's just, you know, it's just a cut above, I guess you'd say. So yeah, Triumph, a bit more refined, I would say, than your average Japanese bike, which it's all fine, man. I love Japanese bikes, but I also love this bike. So we talked about the mirrors briefly when we were going through the overview. After about 40 or so, you do get some vibrations, so it is kind of hard to see. But overall, the mirrors are super usable. Like, you get a really good view of what of what's behind you, which is what we like mirrors for. So, one great feature for dumbasses like myself who like to leave their turn signals on all the time, it's got auto canceling signals. So is it gonna work though? There it goes. So yeah, auto canceling turn signals, which is really cool. Just the feel of this bike is amazing. We did get the suspension tuned for Dragon, who's about 125 pounds. I've got about 75 pounds on her, so right now it's probably a little squishy for me, but it's not set up for me. So, because you know what? It's not about me. It's about Dragon and her getting one of her dream bikes, which she is always looking for getting a Triumph. So, a little side note, Kate, what are you doing? Yeah, I'll just run the red light, of course. Washington drivers are freaking tools. Yeah, shout out to I-90 Motorsports, Issaquah, Washington, Mr. Don Shields. So if you guys are in the area and you want to get a bike, that clutch, man. I swear I'll get used to it. Don is the guy. Gearbox, guys. The gearbox is awesome on this bike. It's really easy to shift, okay? Need I say more, really? We do come with a standard quick shifter. I haven't had a chance to use it yet because Dragon gets mad at me when I talk about getting on the quick shifter. She says she wants to be the first person to use the quick shifter. So I'm gonna honor that. I'm not gonna use the quick shifter. I mean, I'm really gonna try not to use the quick shifter. But clutch, it's very easy to, I'm gonna run this one. It's very easy to pull. I mean, it's just, so if you're doing a lot of stop and go or a lot of city riding, this thing's gonna be great for you because your clutch hand is not gonna get all fatigued and stuff. So really awesome for that. Slipper assisted clutch as well, so if you're gonna you know, if you're gonna do any crazy downshifting, then you're good, because you're not gonna frickin' lock up the wheel. Let's talk about the riding position on this bike. Oh my gosh, it's absolutely just perfect in my opinion. The riding position on this bike is just right. Once again, another comparison to the Suzuki, but I feel like I'm a little bit more in control of this bike than I do when I'm on the GSXS. Not by much, just a little bit. I feel like I'm just kind of hovered over the front wheel like you would be on a Super Sport, just enough, but not leaned over to where I'm having a bunch of pressure on my wrists. I don't really get that anyway because I ride pretty loose, so I don't really have that problem most of the time. But this is not the position of a Super Sport by any means, but this is a very track-oriented bike. Okay, this bike is made for the racetrack. Don't make no illusions about it. It's great for riding around town, but this bike is also made to function on the racetrack, and I'm sure it does quite well. We'll probably be out doing some night riding, I imagine. The sun is going down, but we'll get a chance at how really nicely these headlights project. They are extremely functional and really light your way really good. So headlights on this bike are just fantastic. There's nothing you need to do to them. Quite honestly, aside from aesthetic accoutrements, there's really nothing you really need to do to this bike at all, in my opinion, except maybe, you know, put your exhaust on it or whatever. But we have to be somewhat careful out here because Washington State Patrol is everywhere, and they want that scratch, baby. They want that money so bad. So they be out here making things safer for you and me, which really means collecting money. Let's talk about the handling and the feel of the bike, the weight. This bike is just a hair over 400 pounds wet. I think we're looking at about 410 maybe. So it's a good 50 pounds less than my GSXS. We've talked about the ride quality is just astounding. It's just unbelievable. But the profile of the bike, you can't really see it, I guess, but you do have a twin, and so the bike's gonna have a narrower profile when you're on it. So, you know, it doesn't split you wide open like some of the 4-cylinders do when you get onto them. Faye doesn't like riding the GSXS. She says it spreads her legs too far, which I thought was kind of funny because it's not that wide. But when you get used to the slender profile of this bike, you know, it is a bit of a difference. I really like the position of these pegs. I'm a shorter guy. I'm only 5'5", so I mean, I'm probably not gonna. I do have a right knee issue, but this bike is really comfortable for me. I don't know how comfortable it would be for someone taller than 6 feet, maybe. Your knees are probably going to be bent pretty good, but who knows. But for a shorter rider, it works just fine. And speaking of shorter riders, I know a lot of you guys and ladies, some of us are just not very tall, so seat height is a real consideration when purchasing a sport bike, especially. So I can assure you that with me and my wife both have about an identical inseam, a 29-inch inseam. We're pretty comfortable on this bike. I can't flat foot it or anything, but I'm pretty comfortable on it. I feel like I have a pretty solid purchase on the ground at stoplights, and My wife's inseam, I think, is even just slightly longer than mine, so she's definitely good. She actually tried the Street Triple R low edition, because they make a lower bike for shorter riders, and we could both flat foot that bike, and she didn't like it. She felt like it was too low, so, and I did too, because if you're going to be out and about, you're going to be riding aggressively, you're probably going to be scraping pegs on the low edition. So if you can handle the height of the regular, by all means get the regular. And you'll know when you go and sit on the bikes. You'll know what feels comfortable to you and what doesn't. So yeah, as far as seat height goes, you're in there. I'm sorry I'm not giving you guys exact figures. I'll put them up on screen, but we're looking at just a hair over 32-inch seat height, which, you know, is about pretty much as low as you're going to get for a super sport or an aggressive naked street bike like this one is. You're not going to get much lower than that, unless, of course, you get the Street Triple R. L stands for low. One thing about this bike too I noticed is that the texturing on the right foot peg, my shoe keeps getting caught on it. I don't know what that's all about. It's probably not the bike's fault at all, but something to note. There just really isn't anything to complain about on this bike. There really isn't. It's just that good. They be smoking weed. Oh, I can smell that sweet, sweet weed. Yeah. Washington, man. It's all about that weed. But I just want to give you guys a taste of how the bike handles around town. I personally think it handles great. I watched another review where the reviewer said, I think it was Revzilla. I think it was Lemmy on Revzilla. He says, oh, well, I don't know if I'd have this bike for riding, you know, for riding around town. I think it's just overkill, or I don't know. Some of those reviewers drive me nuts, man, because for an around town bike, I mean, you wouldn't want this thing in frickin' Singapore or something, but if you're in an American city just for riding around town, this bike is frickin' perfect for that. It handles great around the city. So my impressions for day-to-day city riding, this bike is rad for that, man. It's very easy to handle and flick around. It's just a great bike. Let's talk about the seat. The seat is actually really comfortable. I've gone out on this bike and I think the longest ride I've done on this bike is about 225 miles. My ass felt pretty okay afterwards, I must say. So the stock seat is definitely a little bit better than what's on my Suzuki. And this seat looks beautiful too. It's got really nice craftsmanship. It's got really nice stitching and stuff on it, which is kind of the theme of this bike, is just everything on it is high quality. You really get a lot for what you pay, you know. So if you're wanting to get into the European bike market and you don't want to pay Aprilia prices and BMW prices, this just might be the bike for you, because it's just such a well put together and refined bike. In my opinion, I think they just freaking nailed it on this bike. And go Triumph. engine just sounds so good. It's got such amazing power in these upper gears. Even in 6th gear, you see it's got a... Once those RPMs get up to about in the 8 range, oh boy, you better freaking hold on to this thing, because it freaking goes, man. I was actually surprised. This thing just took, when I was doing the flyby earlier, this thing just rocketed all the way up to the red line, man. It was freaking sick, man. I wasn't expecting that much of a power boost. I'm glad I was freaking holding on to this thing, because, whoo, dude. Did I mention how good the brakes are on this bike? Brakes are just fucking outrageous on this thing. Outrageous. There are some fucking nasty bumps on this road. I'm talking nut-shattering bumps. Oh shit.